Hi, I'm Feroz Khan, and welcome to Drag and Drop Low Code Unplugged, the podcast where we explore the game changing impact of low code in software development. Join me in insightful conversations with IT leaders and passionate low code enthusiasts who are at the forefront of this digital evolution. Together, we'll explore how early adoption of low code is giving businesses a competitive edge on a global scale. We'll discuss its impact on software development, dissect its role in transforming businesses, and uncover the ways in which it's reshaping career trajectories. So, whether you're a seasoned IT professional or a curious enthusiast, be sure to tune in as we share success stories and unravel the mysteries of low code. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a front row seat to the revolution that's shaping the future of technology. So, let's go. Hi, Aryan. How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah. How are you, Feroz?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest. I know we spoke earlier in the year, and you've been on my radar of people to approach. And so I appreciate you saying yes and agreeing to come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I looked back a couple of episodes, and it was always an interesting talk that you had with the people attending
Yeah.
your podcast. So I would love to attend also and share my view on where's low code heading and low code in general. That could be really interesting also for myself.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Well, it'd be good to start a bit of, a bit about yourself, a bit your background, who you are, where you're from.
So for me, it was at a young age being interested in all kinds of technologies. At the time, we still had video recorders and how those work. That's of course already dating myself.
Yeah,
Uh, but it also went into well, I think if you look at all the things I did, a thread through all those kind of things is playing games for some reason, being able to play games and how those work. And so you start out with Pong on the TV and move on to Tandy color computers, early 80s, Commodore 64.
yeah,
After
I know.
that,
Yeah,
Amigas, PCs, and a whole
yeah,
list of different PCs. Amiga 2000, some cool
yeah,
stuff in between. So, and everything was about uh, started with playing games and then getting
yeah,
more out of those kind of machines, trying yourself, your hand at BASIC at the time or any other programming language that was available on those kind of machines to move forward. So not a Spectrum guy, I'm more a Commodore 64 guy. That was
yeah,
the two camps, I think, back in the day.
yeah, yeah. And when you kind of went off in your kind of, it's actually funny because a lot of people I speak to, the interest comes from the gaming side, right? They start with the gaming and obviously it leads to technology. When you kind of thought about a career, what was your kind of, idea of, if you can rewind back then, what was your thought process of where you wanted to go what was your
I
goal in
think,
your career?
well, I think for an early age, it was becoming a pilot for some reason. That
Ah,
looked
okay.
like glamorous in the sky,
Yeah.
flying planes.
Yeah.
But due to my eyesight, that was more like playing a pilot on the PC,
Yeah.
and that moved more in the direction of more something to do with computers at a
Mm.
certain age. And I think in high school they did an aptitude test, and that was more towards the beta side of things, and also towards computers. So my goal at that time, so I didn't look further than that, go to university, learn computer science. That
Yeah.
was the goal there. And I did. And it was fun, not specifically the computer science stuff, but more
Yeah.
the being a student on a
Yeah.
university with a campus in the
Yeah.
Netherlands. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And that was at that time the goal.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
thinking further, just see
Yeah.
what happened,
See what
get the
happens. Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
That was the big goal at the time.
Yeah. So after the degree, where did you land? What were you working with?
Well, that was more for after that the university I went into role as a sort of a desk solution architect kind of thing,
Yeah.
looking at projects, seeing what kind of equipment would be needed to do the specific projects. It was more geared towards computer networking, those kind of
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
That's something I also, so apart from the gaming that gets me into computers, gaming
Yeah.
also got me into networking
Yeah.
because I think back in '93, Doom came out
Doom.
with
Yeah.
four-player networking.
Yeah.
And that was why we set up a network in our dorm rooms and moved on from there. So all kinds of things moving in that direction. Yeah.
Amazing. And and then kind of from there, did you kind of ever kind of have a kind of developer style role, or was it more kind of around that?
No, that is actually quite funny because on computer science you learn all kinds of languages and
Yeah.
programming, right? At the time it was Pascal and Modular 2 and
Mm.
assembler on the Atari ST
Yeah.
for some reason. Building your own compiler, that was quite fun. And if you ever have wondered why keyboards can be more complex than now, you really should look into the APL language, or that's double, a
Yeah.
programmer language, because it has, I think, 7 symbols per key, and you can build computer programs with it. And from that point on, I thought, well, something in programming doesn't seem like it would be a great fit for me.
Yeah.
And that focused me more on the configuration side of things,
Yeah.
integration side of things, network kind of side of things, instead of more the programming side of things, because it lost
Yeah.
a bit of its luster, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're coming up to what, 9 years with OutSystems, right?
Yeah.
When before, had you heard of low code before even joining OutSystems? Did you know what it was?
Well, more of the precursor to that, right? Like
Yeah.
Reginald Rose kind of things
Yeah.
from IBM, where you do code generation
Hmm.
kind of approaches. And the Uniface we used at the university to build some stuff with that. But it was all one-way kind of things, right? You just design something, code rolls out, and you run with the code to move that to production, instead of having a real low-code kind of solution. So it was for me a kind of an eye-opener that things like low-code existed, and it was back in 2015, I think, when I was approached for the role. That really brought me into this. Well, you could actually have fun programming.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because a lot of people have fun doing the syntax and having the semicolon in the right place. That's really not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So the visual kind of programming that really drew my attention. And still, I love building something out of systems using the visual language to do that.
Yeah.
It's so cool to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, when you got approached, OutSystems is not that well known. I know it's a big market in the Netherlands, but at that time, kind of when you got approached, did you have any hesitation, going forward, thinking, okay, these guys are some company from Portugal, breaking out in the Netherlands. Is this the right move for me?
Yeah. So what happened is that an ex-coworker of mine, where we did a pretty big project at one of our big retailers in the Netherlands on the integration side of things, which was also pretty cool. He went in as a solution architect to build the Dutch team at the time in Northern Europe.
Okay.
And he asked me as the second person to join the solution architect team. At that time, I said no.
Okay.
Because I thought, project going on, that's still fun to do. It takes another 6-7 months to finish it. And actually, that was the time that my current manager was hired at OutSystems. And I was approached. That was quite successful. And they got on. And some more engagement also with more salespeople joining in the Netherlands, I think. They looked for a third one in 6 months after that. And that was at the same time my project was basically finished. And then I said, yes, love to join, especially with the team that you have now in place also at OutSystems.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
And what role did you start with?
The same role as I'm now, basically.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So it was called, let me think, sales engineer, I think.
Sales engineer. Okay. Yep.
And then Andy Pemberton came in as the EMEA lead for the solution architects. And he's changed that to solution architects.
Yeah.
To be more, well, it sounds like more acceptable, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Just to get the sales out of there, solution architecting thing we do. And still focus on the pre-sales kind of support from the account executive and looking at what the prospect would like to build with OutSystems, or if they even want to build something with OutSystems. That's where you come in and see what happens in that case. Yeah.
And, in your role, because obviously, OutSystems and even other low-code platforms, a lot of the solutions architects they hire usually come in from a different skill set, right? Within technology, they don't always, it won't always be someone who's worked with OutSystems before. So like in your case, you came in and then you have to get up to speed with the platform before you can obviously go out and then expertly advise customers. So how long was that process for you from joining to, because obviously there's also the conversation around low code. It can be picked up quicker, right? So what was that? How was that process for you?
So for me, it helped, of course, that I already had a computer science background, knew about programming. So the concept was not strange to me. The only way that you have to learn the visual modeling language and the thinking about low code in general and how to position it. I think that's the most important part for our pre-sales roles. The way to position OutSystems as a way for companies to speed up their development and at the end bring solutions quicker to production for the business. And that's the thing I think I learned the most about positioning it. And what we did in the past, I think that was a jumpstart per month, just to get some people together from prospective partners or customers, do a jumpstart, tell them about OutSystems, the vision, and guide them through a guided evaluation, basically building their own applications. So that's how I learned also to build applications in OutSystems, doing the jumpstart myself with the people that were joining. So a lot of partners and people from partners and customers. I still see they started with me at the jumpstart in what was it, 2016, 2017 at the time. And
that's great. That's really great. Yeah, that's great. And back then, how was it? When you're kind of engaging with customers, this is 2015, right? 2015, 16 kind of time. Even though Netherlands is a big player in low code, how was it? Was it as well known at that time?
I think at that time it began a bit of becoming more well known. I had never heard of it before they approached me, right? So it became more, and as you said, in the Netherlands, we have different low-code platforms like OutSystems, Mendix, Pettyblocks, Thinkwise, also another one that we come across sometimes. So I think it's fertile ground, I think, to talk about low-code because nowadays everybody has heard of it or at least seen something of it. And if I go, for example, to the Nordics, to Sweden or Finland or Norway, that's still in its infancy, right? The low code concept, because I think it also ties into the idea of what is low code. And I think in the past, low code, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, the naming. It tends to visualize a bit more a low code, so a simple application, only front end kind of thing. Where it's definitely not, right? Especially with OutSystems and Mendix doing their best to provide a enterprise grade platform for customers. It's definitely not a simple application kind of thing. And that also brings me to Excel as the best low code tool ever in my mind. It's much more than that. And it is on the same category, basically. That is so strange to see.
And that ties in well to my next question, and it might be for you to elaborate on it. Is when you're speaking, your role is you're talking to customers, all the businesses, all the time, and would you say that's one of the biggest misconceptions that's out there? Because a lot of people I speak to, the same conversation. I think my last probably 10 recordings is a bit about this, where everyone says they're all on the same low code list, right? They're all kind of, so businesses will assume they're all doing the same thing without kind of digging in. Would you say that's the biggest misconception, or is there others as well?
So I think that is the biggest misconception. That is only for simple applications and front end only. And the other one I see sometimes is, because from OutSystems we talk about the code we generate. That is only a code generator. So you visually build the application, and then as the code generators of old. Push the button, code comes out, you take that code and run that in your production environment. That's the other one that I see sometimes happening, where we do not explain carefully what visual programming, visual modeling of the application basically is, instead of talking about code generation. But yeah, that is one of the, I think, unique points of OutSystems, to be able to see generated code and do code analysis on it for the full application. It's sometimes needed for some security conscious customers. You tend to a bit drift in that corner where it's seen as a code generator and not as a fully platform to visual build applications.
Yeah.
In all kinds of ways. Yeah. So that's one of the challenge.
Yeah. I was at the OutSystems Partner Summit last week, and they were talking about this topic, and they were saying that, they're in discussions with the analysts that potentially OutSystems would move more into the app gen category. Would you agree with that?
Well, you tend to think that because with the release of OutSystems Mentor, the app generator and app editor, it tends to more or less look that way. But for me, it's more an accelerator for the initiation phase of building applications instead of the whole life cycle. Although there will be some options coming in the coming year and next year that will also enhance the AI support for that part of life. But I still see a need for enhancing your application, just using the studio to build functionality on top of what is built. For example, I was last week in Copenhagen on a hackathon for OutSystems specifically, where one of the teams from a partner in Norway got the basis set up by Mentor. Kept around 60-70%, I think, especially the data model, which is quite nice if that comes out, of course. And then built on top of that for 4 or 5 hours, present to the jury and won second place. So
wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I think that's a quite nice way of looking at that, where it's heading. I think with OutSystems with Mentor.
Yeah,
it will not be an app generator for now, for at least the 4 or 5 years, I think. Although AI can go fast.
Yeah,
we've seen it happening the last couple of 1-2 years.
Yeah,
but amazing things can be done, of course.
Yeah. And you touched on earlier in the conversation about positioning, right? And kind of how you position. Obviously traditional software is known to everybody, and it's been around. How do you position when you're dealing with stakeholders? How do you position OutSystems? I don't like to say, I used to say versus and against, when I think it's more kind of, it needs to be more kind of how it can add value, So how do you kind of position?
I agree on that. Yeah.
How do you position OutSystems?
No, I agree. Yeah. So you should talk about adding value to a customer instead of replacing it with OutSystems, right? If you look at what big customers now are doing, is they have a what we call high code practice, the C# Java kind of things, an RPA kind of knowledge group that uses RPA to do automations on and you have, of course, Power Apps is a pretty powerful one for in my eyes, more the departmental kind of things. Yeah. Then you have OutSystems or Mendix as a generic low-code platform on top of that to tie things together and also do app building on that part. But if you talk to developers, the people that still use C# or Java to build applications, I think they are almost always a bit of the resistance within the company, because either they see it as a tool that is not really enterprise grade, or they see it as a threat to their existence, right? Replacing their job. Well, I think it would probably replace some boring parts of the job where you can continue on building bespoke solutions on top of what OutSystems is bringing to the party, right? So it's more a synergy that need to seek, but from the start, it's always a bit of a resistance that we need to overcome. And show them where OutSystems would fit and would help them in the daily job. Well, the daily job is delivering functionality to the business, right? That's their job, not making sure that they put the space in the right place or some other syntax that they need to make sure is correctly.
Yeah.
So that's
And have you found, and obviously, people I speak to, they talk about, obviously it's an education process, right? About getting everyone on board, showing them. Have you been in, meetings before where you've entered the room and, you can kind of feel they don't want to be there or they're not as interested. And then obviously, like you say, and everybody says, just see it, right? And you showed them something and they've been blown away by actually, the aha moment.
That was the best case scenario.
Yeah.
And what actually happened a couple of times that there is a manager that's interested in low code because apparently they're not delivering the value to the business fast enough. So they have some interest.
Yeah.
But then they are in the room, they pull in the developers. Look at this new tool. It will brighten our lives.
Yeah.
And those guys are in there and they said, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
And to convince these people that it can enrich their lives instead of replacing them, that's a pretty hard job. So we tend to more talk about coexistence and bring them into OutSystems, try it out and see how it can help them doing the daily job. Or even what we did at one customer, I think we did a POC with one side some people were interested anyway and wanted to join the dark side for them. Let's put it that way. So they actually built the application both in OutSystems and in Java, and that I think was the technology stack in that customer. And they were, as we always say, much faster. They were actually much faster in OutSystems building the application than in Java. With the same number of people, even more people in Java side of things. And that also convinced them, also the people that were open to new things, to start as an OutSystems developer in the same customer and help the business get the functionality they already wanted for like months, years even, and move forward with it. So that is also one. But that also, it creates always a bit of friction if you come into these kind of traditional shops. Building applications,
and with the confusion around the kind of quadrant and things like that, and you mentioned a lot of business will have power apps, for example. Do you have a lot of times where you might go and the pitch is OutSystems and they're like, well, no, we're already using low code with power apps. We don't want. There's a big kind of comparison with power apps can do what OutSystems can do as much as power apps and not more.
Yeah, exactly. That is, I think, a misconception that still is because you are in the same quadrant in the Gartner and also in Forrester.
Yeah.
So that tends to be a bit of the IDE. But the thing is of course with Power Apps is the Power Platform, right? It's more than the low code side of things, and they are, I think, more focusing on the citizen development kind of things. The replacing. But you see, you still see it, that business uses Excel in all kinds of ways that make your eyes bleed if you look at trying to understand the sheet. And those people are really, I think, geared towards a Power Apps kind of application building, right? They do not have a really background in programming. But they can build something, and you could also do it in OutSystems, of course. But and the goal for OutSystems is more towards the real developers thinking about how to solve problems. What is the optimal algorithm I should use? It doesn't really differentiate that much from traditional development. If you work with OutSystems, it's only visual, drag and drop the components. So that's a bit of I think the misconception that it is the same kind of low code tool. While it's more, I think, and that's what also I've seen at customers, that powers tend to be more like an internal-facing application platform for governmental, departmental kind of applications, replacing Access, Excel type of things. And then you see a need to have a platform that can go beyond those kind of things with massive amounts of data, scalability, a proper application lifecycle management, those kind of things. And that's still it's a big company, Microsoft, so you never know what will happen in the future. But for now, it's still that we see for these kind of application, for these kind of purposes, a generic low code like OutSystems, would be the best fit.
Yeah. And, obviously, the last kind of few years, AI is kind of gaining traction. It's the main kind of conversation. I think every business, even if they don't know what they want to do, they're trying to kind of include it in the conversations, right? To make sure they're not left behind. Are you finding that it's slowing down the decision-making process with customers? Because, for so long there was, okay, do we consider low code? We're using, obviously, businesses will look at traditional versus low code, even though it should be, like you said, an add-on, how can it improve, right? And now you're also adding AI to the mix, do you feel the decision-making process for new logos is much longer because of kind of now AI being thrown in?
That's a more consulted answer. That depends. So what we see happening is in big companies, yes, because they have a lot of things to do and a lot of AI being pushed at them. Smaller companies, not as much, because they see an immediate need. And if they do not have developers, that of course makes it more easy to look into low-code kind of tools to bring them the functionality that they need. But indeed, in larger companies, we see a shift from looking at low-code as the tool, as the platform to use, to more like, can we do more with our current developers using AI? And you can, of course. The numbers I've seen, I've talked to different customers with the development teams, and what I've seen is that 20% improvement of speed and delivery kind of capacity, right, per developer is reachable, is doable. Not more than that, I think. If you look at OutSystems, we promise and we actually make that through, that it's 3 to 4 times faster than traditional development. But of course, AI has the headlines. Copilot is the new shiny tool. So you see a lot of investments going that way, because it's not free. It's quite expensive, those kind of things. And that is slowing down the sales cycle, indeed. And also adds some more wrinkles and to the talking track. We should talk about AI. What does it bring for you? What can it bring for you? And what does OutSystems do with AI? That's the next question. So how much does OutSystems invest in AI? Because that's the future. You say. So it brings some longer sales cycles and some more discussion. To show the value of OutSystems compared to a developer armed with Copilot.
And talking about, what does OutSystems do with AI, and there's multiple things. Obviously, the newest kind of feature and release is Mentor, from, released back end of last year. What's the kind of feedback you're getting from, obviously you're probably showing customers that this is kind of, first phase, but it's going to get better and better. What's the kind of what's the feedback you're getting from customers from first impressions?
So you all talked that in previous questions. It comes off as an application generator, right? And in the basis, it is basically, and that is a bit of also double-edged sword in this case, because from a platform perspective, we have much more value to offer to prospects than just having the app generator in there. You need to be careful with positioning it, as you could give the wrong impression that OutSystems is just the app generator thing. Well, it's much more than that. You can the app editor, of course, for now is a bit limited in what it kind of application generates, and that will improve in the coming months and the coming years. They're very busy at that, but you need to be careful with positioning it in the right way. And that's basically the big takeaway. Positioning it in the right way is challenging, and you need to make sure that you also show the other values that the platform can bring. It's not only app generator or app editor. Much more AI is involved in the platform itself.
And when kind of obviously when you're speaking to customers, what's some kind of key architectural considerations that they should kind of keep in mind when designing scalable solutions?
And I think with O11 you had the 4-layer canvas, the 3-layer canvas at the point in time that allows you to build your architectural correctly in OutSystems. And with I think with ODC being cloud native, that shifted more towards the standard development kind of practices. Domain driven design is a big one. Event driven architectures is another concept that we brought into ODC, of course. Combining those two, I think, will be the key to make scalable architecture in OutSystems ODC. Not that different, I think, for traditional development. I think about following the domain-driven design principles. It's the same thing. You have to define your bounded context, build your application, have a team that is responsible for the domain or for that application. Do not do multiple teams per domain or multiple teams per application. Make sure that autonomy is preserved and that a team is able to just develop the application, but also push that to the test, acceptation, production as an independent lifecycle of that application. And that's, I think, the biggest shift from OE11 to ODC, thinking about that autonomous teams being able to do that. That's the most important one.
Yeah. And with the customers that use the platform, how do you address concerns when if they're hesitant to adapt OutSystems as their primary kind of platform?
It doesn't need necessarily to be the primary platform, right? But there's always some part of the company that would benefit from using OutSystems as a development platform to help them create value faster for the business. That's all about doing something for the business. They need to make money. How do you make money? It will prevent you from making more money. And that's where we jump in. Well, if you have a platform like OutSystems, you will be faster. You'll bring value to your business earlier. Top of the top line, the bottom line, all those kind of conversations you can have on what the value will be. Together, of course, with what's already in place. Do you have an RPA? Do you have Power Apps? Do you have an integration platform? What do you do with bespoke development? What kind of tech stack do you have? How would OutSystems fit in those? Could you replace parts of that? So there's also a bit of positioning in that respect to find the best way of positioning OutSystems for the specific customer or prospect. And it's always a bit of make it fit in the right way within the company. Into account everything that's in place. That's the important part.
And for me, I always see kind of the Netherlands as a low-code powerhouse, right? Because you mentioned the names, right? It's one of the very, I'd say probably the one country that there's multiple big players, right? Where in other countries, one dominates over the other. I tend to talk about the two only. I don't really regard the other ones as much, right?
If you talk about generic low-code platforms,
right. So, and then where Netherlands is both are pushing forward, very strong, in regards to customer base and also developer community. Obviously Mendex is a Dutch founded business, OutSystems, I think after Portugal, Netherlands was is the main kind of place, right?
That's the first outside of Portugal.
Outside of Portugal, probably got the biggest Portuguese community that moved over to the Netherlands. In your 9 years, how have you kind of seen that low code space evolve? Because I'd be very surprised if someone in the Netherlands is shocked when they hear the word low code or OutSystems or Mendex.
I agree. So when we started, was what I talked about more about jumpstart and evangelization.
Evangelization.
That's the word. And it's that I think took like 2 years. So 2018, it was already, and that helps because we have OutSystems in the Netherlands, we have Mendex as a big party there, and also Dutch based. So that also helps. So anything that is low code related, they always invite us and Mendex. So it always helps bring us under their attention. And especially stark with the contrast with different countries. I also help out in for example, Central Europe, in Germany and other countries, which is still a bit of a conservative. And even in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, quite conservative on embarking on new technologies. Well, didn't invent SAP for nothing in Germany. So that's a tough nut to crack, because it's a different. It's a next step from, in my mind, to on top of bespoke development. It's the next abstraction level that can help you bring value faster, and that. Yeah, that is, I think, in the Netherlands, it's and Belgium also is quite well known.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's still tough to promote it.
Yeah. I was gonna touch on, Germany is definitely being such a powerhouse country. I think very, very kind of, I don't want to say behind, but slow in adopting certain ways, right? Of,
That's good. Sometimes that not.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's kind of, I think the impression I've got is Netherlands have kind of gone all in. Belgium have kind of watched to see, okay, yep, it works. We're going to kind of go all in. And the rest are kind of still yet to decide what they want to do.
Yeah. That's exactly true. Yeah, true. And for example, if you look at the situation in the Netherlands, I think 2014, 15, when we signed up Vopak, I think that was one of the points that in the mind of most people made the low code kind of a choice acceptable. Let's put it that way. And that is, I think, from that moment on, it became also with ING signing up them, more of a accepted way of doing development. And that is, I think, you always need some good reference customers in a country that are well known and do impressive stuff. Because if you just automate your lunch app,
exactly.
It doesn't really turn the table. So that's I think the biggest change. These kind of customers to have a well-known name, jumping on the bandwagon, doing impressive projects, and that will be the change that you need in some kind of parts. We have, for example, Green Cargo in the CEO there in Sweden, doing great work on promoting low code or the approach of low code, and we see already a bit of more of traction because you have a successful business that does a low code and does great things with it. That tend to really move the needle in these kind of countries.
I definitely think the value of use cases is very powerful, right? Especially if it's a global or even just country-wise well-known brand. You touched on Vopak, ING, you look at the kind of global Toyota and Western Union and these kind of names where, obviously when the businesses who are hesitant, when they see these kind of things, it obviously makes them at least listen or think, oh, okay, well, I wonder what they built. Let's have a look, right? So, because they don't want to be left behind.
They tend to be just also curious about why did those people go for low code? What does it solve for them, and how successful were they? And that's and having some good people at those customers to talk about OutSystems in public, at one or different kind of partner engagements or other venues, really helps.
Or on my podcast.
That's absolutely valuable. Not only for the low code, but also for the prospects and the customers themselves.
Great. And I like to ask this question to everyone. About you're obviously always advising customers on solutions. But if you could design anything yourself, if there's any kind of thing you could build yourself in the platform, what would it be, and why?
If I would have the time, right? Apart from reading books and selling OutSystems, I think it would tend more to be in the home automation kind of sphere, because I love to do home automation to the. My partner does not always approve of things going not the right way, but that's part of any home automation journey. That's something I love to do. I think we have one of our people in the Netherlands also doing a great work on that home automation using OutSystems. I think you also put it on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Denise Arine, I think, is one of the other ones. Okay, one of the Portuguese guys. That's really interesting to see, and I would love to have also to build something like that for my on my wall tablet or my phone. To be able to control parts of my home in that way. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think if you definitely design something like that, I'd be interested because, even me, like I look for any app where it means I don't have to get up and go press a button, right? I could definitely just do it all from my phone.
Yeah, and especially with if you with Home Assistant, of course, you can bring your own voice assistant, so not be
Yeah.
dependent on the evil big tech.
Yeah.
So let's put it that way,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Amazon or the Google or
Yeah.
the all that kind of things.
Yeah.
So that would be something to look into, and they have those kind of things already, and you
Yeah.
can tie them together with your own large language
Ah,
model and
great.
have them speak to you and also have a conversation with them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Dinesh Carvalho, that's the one.
Okay. I know the name.
On
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. I'll check it out definitely. And, finally, what would be kind of, there's still, and you probably come across this a lot, there's still a big, a lot of skepticals of low code, what would be your message to those who are still skeptical today, even though it's quite well known and very recognized?
Yeah. Let me think. I think the most important one is it's just development, right? It's just a different paradigm, but it's just development. It's just it's all about solving challenges.
Yeah.
If you love solving challenges, you love solving challenges also in OutSystems. And that's, I think, the best takeaway from that part. It's programming with visual, and
Yeah.
it is think about your problem, think about an approach, think about everything you learned about algorithms you had in university, for example, or in any training on development. You just can apply those kind of learnings also in OutSystems. But for me, it was really that I didn't like just having to put the right syntax in to solve the problem. I could write a beautiful pseudocode to solve a problem. But translating that to the real code, that is always a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
And having the ability to do that in visual, that is really helping me. Also enjoying programming again.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I appreciate you being a guest and sharing your journey, how things have been with OutSystems, some insights into obviously the market locally for the region you're covering, and also obviously with AI, what you're kind of hearing and seeing. So I really appreciate you taking the time and being a guest.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Feroz.
No, it was a pleasure.
Fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.